Well, Eric, thanks so much for joining me here today on The Ripple Effect with Ray. He is the founder of Human Sync. He works in the longevity medicine space and helping patients. That's always been his main priority, has been in that space since 2018. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Amazing. So tell me, Eric, you mentioned it's been, some time since you've been in the longevity space and
Mhm.
or, you started Human Sync. What inspired you to start the company?
It kind of just happened. Did not plan on it. It's kind of interesting. I think as a kid, I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, where Mayo Clinic's headquarters is. So I was around the health field, but it's Western medicine health, right? And I don't even know when I started becoming interested in health. In high school, I got on. I think a friend came back after summer break and he'd been lifting weights the whole summer. I'm like, wow, guy, so that interests me. I'm like, oh, interesting. So I'll start doing that. I was always in sports. That the lifting weights led to eating cleaner and because I wanted to benefit from that. And then I went on, I would call it my experimental years after high school for a few years. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Got into personal training, started listening to podcasts, and had a friend. I worked in social work, worked at restaurants, was on track to become the assistant sales manager at Lifetime Fitness down in Arizona. And that was great, but there was something not fully connecting. And I had a friend say you'd be a very good nurse. You should consider that. So I moved back to Minnesota from Arizona, got my nursing degree. And after my first test in nursing school, I almost quit because we weren't learning anything about preventing disease. It was all about medication management, and I was like, gosh, there's something more deeper than that. But I finished my degree. Long story short, I applied to the same floor my dad worked on at Mayo Clinic. He was a neuro assistant, like a surgical assistant. So very complex brain neurological cases. And so he was directly in surgery. I knew that floor was highly specialized, and for some reason at that point I was 25. I wasn't like a new grad at age 21. I was 25, so maybe the life experience made me kind of ready for challenge. So I was like, I'm going to try to get into this floor and had an interview with Mayo Clinic, and I remember meeting with them and they had my application highlighted. They're like, "Okay, your life experience is what's leading us to hire you because you've worked with at-risk youth and you've worked with challenging situations. So maybe you could be a good fit for our floor." And that was really great. This is all tying into what led me to build Human Sync, though. I would see things there that I was kind of surprised, even in Western medicine, that was happening. Like somebody just had a brain tumor removed, or they had surgery on something, motor vehicle accident, or if it was a suicide attempt. I mean, it's very sad situations. They excelled at taking care of people in those states, by the way, though. It was awesome. The books that I was reading on neurology, I had to report to the authors of those books that were the doctors, like the attending physician taking care of the patient. So I had to know what I was doing. So that challenged me. I loved it. But we were giving Pepsis and cookies and just junk food to people after surgery. And I had a problem with it. And I was like, I can't do this forever. So I would type in integrative nursing, functional nursing, medical degree. Should I become a nurse practitioner and follow that route? Most nurses will do their thing for a while, become a nurse practitioner or case manager or something like that. Still nothing. And then I found Wild Health, a company that was on Ben Greenfield's podcast back in 2018. Have you heard of Ben Greenfield?
I have, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of people have. Some people
Yeah.
have like the original gangster of podcasts in this biohacking space, and biohacking is different from longevity. It's a bit different from what we're doing, but he brought exposure, and I heard a couple doctors talking about it, and that's what led me into the space. And then fast forward 7 years, I've been a part of 5 or 6 businesses now in the space, and was advised by somebody I know. They're like, you've been building for other people. I think it's time for you to build something yourself. And I ended up joining forces with his son, who's a business guy and an Ironman athlete, to build what is Human Sync now. So long-winded way of saying why we're here, but that's why we're here.
I know, but I want the whole thing. I want the whole story. I mean, I appreciate you sharing all of that because no founder story is the same. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it comes from something we personally went through. We personally saw something that, just didn't sit right. And we're trying to make a change, right? You could
Yeah.
easily have, followed the status quo or done something different, but you're like, no, I actually want to do good. That's the whole point of, the ripple effect, right? How can we
Yeah.
actually create something that creates a wave or a movement, right? So What have you been noticing since founding Human Sync, or even something that you've seen? I think longevity is such a hot word right now, hot topic.
Yeah. Overused, overused.
Right? And so, what have you been noticing in the industry, whether it be one or both of those topics?
Many different things from how you run the business to working with physicians to technology. But maybe what I'll start with is what patients just don't understand. So a lot of working with patients, I think. I don't know if I've always been on the empathetic, compassionate side. That's why I knew I wouldn't last in the ICU because a lot of patients don't do well. My wife's father, for example, is on a bunch of medications, and so are a lot of people. I'm from the Midwest, so we've got a lot of people. I mean, everybody in the world's on meds. And I remember asking him one day, "Do you know what you're taking?" And he had kind of a little pill box that he carries with him. The nicest person ever, very nice, very kind of like we call him the big teddy bear. Never questions anything. That generation listens to the all-knowing doctor on avoid eggs because they're going to cause heart disease, or just take all these meds because that's what the answer is. And that also bothered me. Kind of the same little guy on my shoulder, or little chip on my shoulder from nursing school. Like, gosh, this is completely wrong. We're great for acute care. So there's that internal driver of, I'm aware there's 330 million people in the US and what, 7 billion globally, and people just don't understand their body. So the educational piece, us as a business, like we make sure our patients understand what is heart disease based on the current science. It could change in a couple of years, but LDL is not the cause of heart disease. And I could go on several tangents on that. So patient education is a big one in this field. Like we can't just say this is the ultimate plan based on your tests and we'll see you later. We have to walk a patient, like hold the patient's hand, the ones that want to be held. Like this is the total picture of your cardiovascular system based on what we know about it. And there's a lot going on. And so Human Sync has 6 systems of aging that are our clinical compass. We want people to understand heart disease, neurological disease, immune dysfunction, cancer risk, metabolic health, and physical health. And they get a report that gives them a full breakdown on it. There's a very tight overview for people that are like, I don't want all the details. I don't need to know all that. Just tell me what the results are, tell me what to do. We offer that, but then we have to provide the details for the people that want it too. So that's on the patient side. I think on the other things I'm noticing in the market, in the businesses I've seen and been a part of, is there's so much focus on testing and fancy peptides and therapies and stem cells and all these things that we're losing focus of what the ultimate goal is. And the ultimate goal is to make sure people don't get these diseases that they're getting. So expensive upfront testing with a lack of ongoing care and quality of care and health outcomes. So those have been, just in the last couple of weeks, I've started to do a little more social on that. We're managing all the social ourselves right now, so we're doing our best. In the near future, we're going to have somebody manage it for us to get the word out there a little bit more. But what drives us is health outcomes and quality of care, mainly because it's not happening as much in the industry as I think it should. So there's awesome blood panels out there that'll test 100 biomarkers, and then they recommend it's kind of an automated system because they are touching the lives of hundreds or if not thousands of people. Doctors can't manage that much. So that's the problem in this space is fancy marketing, better than Western medicine. Lots of talk. Yeah, get the biomarkers and the supplements and the peptides. But those companies may not even know the blood pressure of the individual or the resting heart rate or some of the vital signs that are critical to all parts of our body. So we're backing up a little bit. We're not testing, we're not focusing on all, we can do all the testing. So I don't want to say that we don't test because we definitely do. We do very specific testing, quite a bit of testing, but then we put together a roadmap that says in the next 12 months, we would really like your clinical biomarkers and data to be at this point, and then reverse engineer how to get that by quarter. But then simultaneously addressing the health goals that the person has. Some people just want better energy, more energy. They want to get through menopause smoothly. They want to understand their brain so they don't have the same risk of Alzheimer's disease that their mom or grandma had. or lose weight, gain muscle. So there's the patient's goals, the clinical goals, and then all of our testing that's put together into a roadmap. And I don't see this happening in the space a lot, actually. And I would say for the first 10 months of us being a company this year, we we had some traction, and now the model is starting to attract more groups. So the conversations we're having with other groups to bring in patients, those are starting to become really sticky. People are liking the product. We've got some big business groups we're talking to now that surveyed this space that they're not health business groups, but they are business consulting groups. And that's who we're working with as patients. So they are very aware of how to analyze the businesses. So they've analyzed the longevity market. Just yesterday, we got validation. We've been working with somebody that runs some of these businesses. And he's like, you guys are really onto something. Your model is very unique. The value proposition of the business is unique. So that felt really nice because we're operating differently from a lot of the companies, but hopefully it all works out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it sounds to me like, it's always nice to get that reassurance that you're on the right path,
Yeah.
right? And I think we don't always seek outside validation, but it's nice to hear, right? And
Yeah.
especially when the market in both, probably in modern medicine and in functional health, is becoming really saturated. And
Very.
like it's really, you have to kind of navigate your own authenticity, your like, what is your unique medicine, right?
Yeah.
And it's really an interesting space to be in right now. But yes, like I think there's I feel like Western medicine that really focuses on certain blood panels. And, they'll test you, your CBC, your metabolic, maybe if you're lucky, your thyroid. But there's so many things out there that they're not testing for. Whereas, in functional health, they'll definitely test your thyroid. They'll definitely test your hormone levels. But then there's also certain things that maybe there's something missing there too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really interesting to see the times that we live in. Where is medicine moving? What would you say when it comes to human sync
Mhm.
and what's been working really well? What's been maybe a little bit more frustrating or challenging?
What's working really well is the model. It seems to be on the outside, it's a lot of manual processes. So I think speaking about just the testing experience. So some companies in Western medicine, they don't test enough. There are models out there that over test. So for example, a 30-year-old or a 28-year-old, I can think of five tests that are pretty personalized and unique that every 35, 30-year-old should get. Do they need a whole body MRI in those five tests? Probably not yet. But if you have the data, yeah, it'd be great. But do we need to do 25 tests for an individual that's 30 years old? Compared to if somebody was 65, I think more testing is very beneficial because then you survey under the hood a little more efficiently. So we don't have templated testing. We're in the middle ground. So what we use is genetics, and we have genetics related to the systems I'm talking about. So cardiovascular disease risk, neurological, immune, physical health, metabolic health, cancer risk, and then we look at the lifestyle genetics related to diet, exercise, sleep, stress, and environment. So just the genetics alone, you get a really good picture on what we're dealing with. And genetics are not destiny, they're helpful, but they're not everything. So it's just like, okay, do we know there's risk related to environmental health and how the person metabolizes mold? Yeah, we know that. Pesticides, glyphosate, or environmental health is like it's one of the sexiest things in the market right now. Everybody's like environmental health and detox. So we understand the risk based on genetics and what we're dealing with. We do a comprehensive blood panel, DEXA scan, VO2 max, and then we can add if we're dealing with somebody's got a history and they've got the Alzheimer's gene and environmental problems, we can run a brain MRI to see the size of the hippocampus and the brain center to see if there's any shrinkage of volume. If there's shrinkage of volume with genetics, that is setting off on a trajectory towards mild cognitive impairment, which is the step before dementia and Alzheimer's. So that's like the baseline testing is pretty similar for most people. And then based on what we see, we'll pull and be like, okay, we got to go down that track. We call them focus plans. So there's some people will detect right away, like environmental health is a big one. They paint indoors, They spray fields in Kentucky. They're living in a moldy construction or working in a moldy construction trailer. We've got several people that fit that criteria right now. So that seems to be going really well. What's not going really well is how much work it is behind the scenes to pull that off, because that's probably why most businesses have decided not to do what we're doing. So the scale is a problem. And we're not trying to scale. So many people are asking you, what's your scale plan? We're like, we don't have a scale plan. We want to crush the first 100 patients, meaning we want them to have the most tremendous transformation health-wise and experience as a patient that they refer one or two or three people. So our business is entirely word of mouth. We're at 100% retention. Nobody's quit. We've had several people say, sign me up for the second year because I'm anticipating your prices will go up. I would love for prices to go down in the second year for somebody. For some reason, I love that idea. I've always been like, I'd like to sign up and like show, but anyway, that's a whole separate thing. Yeah, so that's the hardest part is, and then getting the word out there. That's tough because it is a saturated market. So we've looked at marketing options. It just doesn't work as much as I'd like it to work sometimes. Marketing is tough in this space because it is so saturated. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it answers it perfectly. And thank you for sharing that too, because yeah, there's so many variables that go into growing a business as well as, the priorities of the business and,
Yep.
what you hope to accomplish. So you kind of
Yep.
touched on, you have amazing retention. That's great that everyone kind of stays on. It's what you'd really hope for. It's another like tick in the box that, hey, you're on the right track. And so, you're saying hopefully maybe you're able to maybe lower prices in year two. What are some other little things on the vision board for the next 6, 12 months, maybe even a couple of years from now?
We're working on a couple exciting things. I don't want to get too excited. A potential research project with a major university, a Division I university that has athletes. So they're trying to figure out if we're going to do that. I mean, it's a lot of work to put together a research study with a research institution. And then I'll back up a little bit. The work we're doing on the brain is pretty special. We have a scientific advisor named Matt Kaberlein, who's a researcher that I've been following for a long time. He's been on Peter Attia's podcast. Matt Kaberlein he's probably one of the world experts on rapamycin, or he is. It's a medication that's used for transplants. In low dose, it's showing promise for Healthspan and improving many systems in the body and cleansing the body. It's really interesting. This is not a recommendation to go start rapamycin though, because it's not that easy. There's some nuances to it, but he's really good with that. He's got a scientific eye and credibility that I've always looked up to. And when we started Human Sync, I'm like, we have to have that. So we reached out to him. He's now part of our team. I had an idea when we first met, that first lunch, actually. It was down in Florida and had coffee for 4 hours. And I said, we should do a joint brain health program because the space is new and it's booming. Within this space, there are many knowns. Like we know essentially what to do about cardiovascular disease. We know about what to do for metabolic health and diabetes. If we encounter people that have problems in those areas, extremely confident. I'm also very confident with the brain. Not many people are, and I'm not saying that because we know all the information, but I've obsessively looked at this since being at Mayo Clinic, and then the businesses I've been a part of. I'm noticing a trend. There are so many. The brain is so complex. That's probably again why people haven't really tackled it because they don't really know. So you hear type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's disease. Have you heard that before?
I haven't,
Yeah.
but now I have.
Sometimes people seem to be like, oh, have you heard of type 3 diabetes? And oh, Alzheimer's disease is caused by blood sugar problems. Partially true. There is blood sugar dysregulation that can lead to cognitive problems, but there's like six other drivers. So there's inflammation, genetics, trauma, toxins, oxidative stress, metabolic dysfunction, hormonal vitamins and nutrients. It's complicated to figure out which of those are causing the problems. And most of those, it's usually multiple of those that are driving problems in the brain. Detecting how that works and figuring an operational system behind it to figure out how to do that actually in a practice is hard. But we've done it. We came up with an idea, passed it by Matt. He liked it. And then for the last 6 months, we've been fine tuning it. And we're going to release that hopefully in the next like 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to target people that have Alzheimer's genes. We're talking to some former athletes, NFL athletes that are at risk for CTE, traumatic brain injury. Anybody that's had trauma to the brain essentially would benefit from being in this program because where it's very comprehensive. Once again, though, it's a ton of work behind the scenes, and we're trying to figure out the right tech solution to help us manage it because it's a lot of work, but it's worth it because if we can do it right, and even a small amount of people, we can double it, triple it, get the tech to support it, the team to support it, and then maybe help other clinics help their patients and get this into a hospital system would be my ultimate goal. But that's like 10 years, and having an actuary come in and insurance, like that sounds like a headache. But if we have to do it, we will, just because we want to get it out there. So I'm most excited about the brain. On the side would be the environmental health program. I'm starting to just see that we have to get into that because there's not a lot of solutions and a lot of people are interested. And we live in a soup of crap, pardon my French, but there's just so much mold and everything everywhere. I live in northern Minnesota on the Iron Range, and our well has every forever chemical. It's got mold in it. It's got, it's just crazy. And a lot of people are curious about their environment, but they don't know what to do. So I think our second major focus will be environmental health. But then coming up really close to that, maybe in line with that, would be a women's health program because that's another huge opportunity. There's just not enough solutions out there for women. So I would love to help us drive change in that field as well.
Amazing. Well, Erik, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today on the ripple effect and where and how can people find you, some of these programs? How can people maybe work with you?
Humansync.com. We can reach out there or on LinkedIn directly. My name is Erik Nelson, Erik, and then I'm on LinkedIn quite frequently. So reaching out either through the website or LinkedIn is the best.
Perfect. Sounds great. I'll include all of that in the show notes. And it was such a pleasure to get to chat with you today. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you.